everyone, it's Justine here and welcome to day 7 of the 13 days of Halloween. Today we're going to be creating this really cute card using the Bird Crazy stamp set, the Crazy Things, and So Susie Stamp's Safest Day stamp. When using these stamps, it does take a little bit of pre-planning. So I'm working on a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of Nina's Desert Storm cardstock, and I'm just laying out the stamps that I want to put down on my card. Now I have my two little birds, and I have a little few accessories that I wanted to include on the card. Now in order to do this, I had to create obviously a custom size card. So I took my T ruler and just measured the top of how high the card is going to be, as well as how wide the card is going to be, and then I had to just trace around the sentiment so I know where that would be and where the birds are going to be, etc., etc. So it does take a little bit of pre-planning, but the scene is really awesome. So I'm going to take a piece of masking paper from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to be die cutting the hat as well as the pumpkin. When making a scene card, you have to think what is going to be at the very front of the scene. So for example, if I'm wearing a hat, the hat is going to cover a piece of my face. So the hat is going to be first, and then you're going to stamp the person, or the bird in this case. So I had to think of what was going to be at the front. So I die cut those two pieces, and please ignore the piece of craft cardstock that I have in there because I had made a mistake, and I cut these out too soon. So just cut out the hat and the pumpkin at this point with the masking tape. Now you have your whole card laid out, and you're just going to slowly take away the birds because these are going to be at the foreground. So you're going to have to stamp these exactly where they are. So what I did was I took a pencil and I marked off where these stamps were. That way I could stamp approximately in the exact location that I needed to. I'm going to be stamping using some Memento ink, and I'm going to stamp the hat as well as the jack-o'-lantern sort of candy bag there first, and then I'm going to cover them with the masks that I just cut out. Now I'm going to go in and actually stamp the birds themselves. So I've laid down the birds where I want them to be approximately. I'm going to ink up using the Memento ink, and then I'm going to stamp the birds. So I'm going to stamp this first bird because they're both kind of looking at the sentiment and this sort of look of shock. I know they're supposed to be crazy birds, but this expression on their face can be interpreted in so many different ways. And so I'm just going to go in and stamp the second bird now. And this one here was a little bit tricky. I had to think about it because, yes, the pumpkin's going to be in front, but I wanted the strap of the pumpkin to be under his wing as if he were carrying it. So I had to think about how I was going to do that. So now I can peel these away, and you can see that the pumpkin looks a little funny at the moment, but it's going to be fixed because what's really cool about the die cuts is that they actually come with not only the birds, but their wings, their eyes, and their beaks. So I'm just going to ink these up and stamp them onto a piece of scrap Nina's Desert Storm cardstock, exactly the same color as we did on our card base. And I'm just going to lay out the dies and get those cut. Alright, so I'm just going to lay out the dies that are going to be cut using this, and then I'm going to have to cut them into different shifts, I guess you could say, or 2 different times, because if I were to lay out all 4 dies that I need, just like this, they actually don't nest well together. They actually are on top of each other. So first off, I'm going to cut out the eyes, the beak, and the wings, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to cut the eyeball from the other bird. So I have all of those pieces, and I'm going to glue them onto my card now. Now you could color this image first and then color the pieces and then attach everything. Doesn't really matter the order that you do it in. But now that I've cut the wing, you can see that I can strategically place it so it looks like he has the pumpkin, he's holding the pumpkin underneath. So I really like the way that that looks. And you want to make sure that your pumpkin is also on the same level as the bird's little feet, because if not, that would look kind of funny. Then I'm just going to go in and put the eyes down, the beak, etc. And I'm just using some Tombow Mono liquid adhesive. You don't need to do this step. It's definitely an extra step, but it does look really cool on the finished card itself. You might not be able to see that in the images, but it gives it a little bit of a 3D effect. So when you're all finished that, I'm just going to go in with my white blending tool from Tim Holtz, as well as the white pigment ink from Simon Says Stamp. Now, I had before traced around where my sentiment is going to go, and now with a very light hand, I'm going to add some white pigment ink because I want this sentiment to sort of stand out against the card. So I wanted to give it a white background. Now, you don't really need to worry. Pigment ink spreads really nicely across the paper because it doesn't absorb right away by the paper. It sits on top of the paper. So you don't need to worry about getting any streaks or anything like that. If you keep moving your hand in a circular motion, you'll be fine. You may want to hit this with a heat gun first before stamping your sentiment. I didn't need to do that and I didn't have any problems. So this is the Safest Day sentiment from So Susie Stamps, and I'm just going to ink that up using some Memento ink. And it is Halloween is the safest day to kill a person and leave them in a chair on your front porch. And I think this sentiment is super funny. And I decided to underline it with the broom from the Crazy Things stamp, which is where that pumpkin and that hat came from. I absolutely love pairing these birds up with really funny sentiments, and So Susie Stamps is definitely a great source for snarky sentiments. If you go to sosusiestamps.com and click on snarky sentiments, you'll see that there's a variety of sort of different snarky sentiments like this one. So I'm just going to go in, color these with my Inktense pencils. These are pencils that are meant to work with water. And so you can just watch me color this, and I'm going to put it on fast mode as well as some music, and it'll be over before you know it. Just wanted to mention that between colors, you should wipe the brush off on your hand as you're going so that you don't mix up the colors. So I'm just cutting and making my own custom card right here. So I'm cutting off the sides as much as it'll go, so it's going to be quite a long card. And then what I did was I put it up to where the card front would be. And you can see it's at about 4 1/4 inches roughly. And I'm going to put that fold line on the same tick where I put the score line, and then you're going to get a perfect custom sized card. So I'm just going to turn this over, and I am going to use my bone folder to fold this. Now if you're sending these through the mail, then you're going to need to make a custom envelope, and a long card like this might be a little bit difficult to do that. But anyway, you can do it. I'm just going to give this to a person in person, so it's not a big deal. So that's the end of today's card. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. All the supplies that you see in this video are listed below in the description or on my blog. And here you're welcome to click to check out that supply list as well as my blog, maybe some more pictures. On the right, you can click the subscribe button in order to subscribe to my channel, and on the playing video right there in the screen, you can click on that to see yesterday's video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. See you tomorrow for day 8.